Hi, this is Adam Robles, and I found an article today. It's not a new article, but I found it today, and it is written by a professed Christian, published by a professing Christian magazine, and it advocates for racial segregation, or at least a form of it. Um, and this is honestly, it's not a new idea to advocate for these black only spaces where black people can talk about black issues and be concerned about black things, and no whites allowed because otherwise they'd have to confront white supremacist ideas and things like that. This is nothing new, but it's I haven't really seen too much of it from professed Christians as if it put out there as if it's a good thing. So I wanted to go over this really quick, and this one particularly caught my eye because the author makes a weird claim in it. Let me take you to this article here. It's Faithfully magazine. I do not recommend this magazine, obviously, but it's a social justice warrior magazine. Most every article that I've ever read in it is full of biblical and theological errors. I don't know the perspective that they're coming from, besides that they claim to be Christian, but you really, really have a hard time understanding that it was Christian if you just read the articles. If you didn't know that they profess to be Christian, you really wouldn't be able to tell based on the articles. They're just pretty bad. But anyway, here's the article. It's called "Black Only Spaces Harm No One, So Why Are White People So Upset?" And I'm not gonna read the article. It's by he's a deacon in a church, Danny Cardwell. And, you can read it if you like and get the idea. He presents this idea of black-only spaces, and he's kind of wondering, why is it that white people have such a problem with black-only spaces? Anyway, but here, this is the sentence that I thought was so interesting, or the section. Here he says, "White America is in no way negatively impacted by black-only spaces. Contrary to popular belief, black-only spaces aren't a form of segregation. Contrary to popular belief, black-only spaces are not a form of segregation." So, I don't have every definition of words memorized, and I could be wrong about what I think a word means. But let's just do what I did when I first read this article. I'll show you what I did, and anyone can do this. Go to Google, you type in definition segregation. Okay, and it'll give you a definition here. This. I don't count this as official. We got to go to the Merriam-Webster, the standard dictionary of the English language. And here we go. The definition of segregation. The second definition: the separation or isolation of a race, class, or ethnic group by enforced or voluntary residence in a restricted area, by barriers to social intercourse, by separate educational facilities, or by other discriminatory means. So, if you advocate for spaces that are black only, no whites allowed, by definition of the English language, something that we can all agree on, that is a form of segregation. So, when this author says that he is not advocating for a form when it says that black spaces is not a form of segregation, he can say that, but it don't make it so. You know what I mean? He's literally, black only spaces are a form of segregation. That's it. It's just by definition they are. So you can say that it's not all you want, but it is. That's the problem. Let's go back to this article here. You see, here's the thing. Black people seeking to create spaces where our thoughts and feelings are a priority harms no one. Yet this enrages white conservatives, isolates white liberals and progressives, and hurts black integrationists, irrespective of their political leanings. So here's the thing, right? There's no sin in the Bible called the sin of segregation, right? If you want to spend time with other people of your ethnicity or your skin color or melanin count, if that's how you want to spend your time, worried about how much melanin your friends have or your people have, that's up to you, right? You want to do that, that's fine. But there is a sin in the Bible called the sin of partiality. And so if you say that I'm going to treat you partially because of whatever factor it is, it could be melanin count, as stupid as skin color, it could be whatever you want, that is a sin. Okay, and so this article presents this idea of black spaces as if it's a good thing, as if what's everyone's problem with this? This is a Christian article. Everyone's problem with it is that it's demonstrating the sin of partiality. That's everyone's problem with it. Going back to the article for a second, at the end of the article, he kind of says, look, segregating, here's this last sentence. The only space we can truly make black only is the space between our ears, and that's much more difficult than segregating an auditorium for a few hours. So he's asking you to think black, right? He wants you to think in the black mentality rather than worry about just the physical location or having an auditorium of only black people. This is just flat out, I'm sorry, this is racist. You know what I mean? And I think the church needs to call this kind of stuff out. I'd be willing to bet I've got a lot of white friends who would not call this kind of stuff out. And I think they do it because they're afraid of being called racist. I'm sorry, this is the sin of partiality. This article presents the sin of partiality as if it's no big deal. And that's unfortunate, and that's wrong. You shouldn't do that, especially as a Christian, especially as a deacon. You should know better. And so I'll call this stuff out, and I have a lot of cover because I'm not white. I get why a lot of white people don't do it, but I'll call it out. I encourage you, please. God, if you care about the truth, be courageous and call this stuff for what it is. It's the sin of partiality. You would do it. You would call it out if a white person was doing it. If a white person said, we need to create white-only spaces. And here's the thing. The author of this article would say, yeah, but every church is a white-only space. I don't know if he would say this, but people like this tend to think that, like, oh, there's white spaces all over the place. Everything's white supremacist. Every church is a white-only space. Well, look, even if that were true, which I do not buy for a moment, but even if I did, you cannot fix sin with more sin, especially sin of the same type, right? So if you're saying that the churches are segregated already, you don't solve that by further segregating them. And this is a call for further segregation. So I urge you, man, my white brothers and sisters, my brown brothers and sisters, stop with this. Call it out for what it is. This is the sin of partiality put on display as if it's no big deal, and it is a big deal. Be courageous. Don't worry if they call you racist. Don't worry if they call you white supremacist, because if you're advocating for people to not show partiality, let them call you whatever you want. What are you more worried about? People calling you racist or sexist or misogynist or white supremacist or all this stuff? Or are you more worried about what God says? That's the question. I hope that you take that advice. God bless.